At the Christmas party, my mother-in-law handed out her gifts like a queen distributing favors. Perfume for my wife, a watch for her son, cash for her nieces. Then she handed my 6-year-old son a box. He tore it open, his small hands trembling with excitement. Empty. No paper, no toy, no note. Just an empty white box, hollow and cruel. He looked up at her, confused. She smiled thinly. Maybe now he'll learn not to be greedy. Laughter rippled through the room. My wife smirked, brushing imaginary lint from her red dress. That boy doesn't need anything, does he? The words cut deeper than I expected. My son's eyes filled with tears. His lower lip quivered, but he said nothing. He just stared at that box like it was proof of something I hadn't wanted to see. I stood, calmly, quietly. I looked at my wife, then at her mother. No one noticed when I left. That night I couldn't sleep. I replayed the moment again and again, the laughter, the humiliation, the flicker of cruelty in my wife's eyes. Something wasn't right. It wasn't about the box. It was about the way she looked at my son. Detached, irritated, like she was tolerating him for someone else's sake. She used to look at me that way, years ago, before we married. Before her mother began whispering that I wasn't their kind. I went to my son's room. He was asleep, clutching a toy car. The empty box lay on the floor. I picked it up, and underneath the flap, written faintly in pen, was a date, 2 months before his birth. A date that meant nothing until I remembered where my wife had been then. A conference in another city. I told myself I was being paranoid, but the mind doesn't lie when the body goes cold. Over the next few days, I watched her. The way she smiled at our son only when others were around. The way she flinched when he called her Mom. My mother-in-law visited often. She'd bring gifts for everyone but him, always wrapped too beautifully to ignore. I saw the pattern now, the subtle cruelty dressed as tradition. So I played along. I laughed. I nodded. I was the quiet, grateful husband again. But inside, something methodical had begun. While they decorated the tree one evening, I collected the items I needed. A toothbrush, a comb, a tissue from the trash can. DNA was impartial. It didn't care about charm or family or lies wrapped in red bows. When the test came back, the result was clear. Probability of paternity, 0. The words didn't wound me. They confirmed what I'd already started to know. The boy was not mine. And the cruelty in that empty box wasn't accidental. It was a message. I waited a week. I waited until Christmas lights lost their warmth and the decorations gathered dust. That night, dinner was quiet. My wife chatted about plans for New Year's. My mother-in-law bragged about her perfect family. When they finished, I stood. "I brought something for you both," I said. I placed 2 envelopes on the table. My wife looked confused. My mother-in-law smiled, smug and unbothered. "Open them," I said. Inside the first was the DNA report. Inside the second, a copy of the property transfer I'd filed 3 days earlier. Everything we owned was now under my son's name, legally untouchable. My wife's face went pale. My mother-in-law blinked, her confidence faltering. I leaned forward slightly. "You wanted him to feel empty," I said quietly. "Now you both know what that feels like." My wife's eyes filled, but she said nothing. My mother-in-law whispered, "You can't." I already did. They tried to explain, to plead, but I'd stopped listening months ago. I looked at my wife. I loved him because I thought he was mine. Now I love him because he isn't yours. She flinched. Her mother's lips parted, but no sound came out. I continued calmly, almost kindly. You raised your daughter to manipulate, to control, to use people until they broke. You did it so well that she didn't even notice she'd become you. I picked up my coat. You both taught me what love isn't. For that, I'm grateful. I left the house without looking back. Behind me, the silence was heavier than any scream. 1 week later, I watched my son open a new box on his birthday. Inside was a letter. This box will never be empty again. He smiled, small, genuine, trusting. I felt nothing but calm. Not happiness, not sorrow, just peace carved from ruin. Some truths don't destroy, they cleanse. My wife moved out. Her mother stopped calling. And in the quiet that followed, I understood something profound. Love built on deceit always collapses, but when it does, it clears the ground for something real. The boy wasn't my blood, but he was mine. And this time, the box was full.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and comment. Subscribe now to Cheating Stories Insight World for more amazing stories.